All right, I think we're live now. So folks, if you're just joining us, welcome to the session. This is the Chief Student Affairs Officer panel. And we're gonna have some fun today talking about some big issues that have gone on our campus. I'm Dr. Lee Barnett. I am the Vice Provost for Student Affairs at Columbia Southern University down in Orange Beach, Alabama. And I'm also an at-large board member for Naspa, Alabama. So I hope you've had a great time so far with the conference. These sessions have been great. They've been very informative. And it's been a unique way for us to do a conference together. We're used to our fellowship and our time of hanging out, but the coffee breaks, the networking sessions, hopefully that's worked for you. In this particular session, you're going to get an opportunity to hear from a panel of senior leaders as we address a few questions and some issues that have gone on this year. And then there'll be an opportunity for question and answer to come from you guys when we get a little bit further into it. Now, I can't see the chat that the participants are putting up, so that information will be fed over to us. So you may have just a bit of a lag if you ask a question and we're waiting on that. So at this time, let me introduce to you our panel of distinguished guests who are going to speak today. We have Dr. Amanda Harbison, who's the Dean of Students at Shelton State Community College, joining us. We have Dr. Myron Pope, who will be logging in soon. He's running a little behind. He is the Vice President for Student Life at the University of Alabama. Dr. Kimberly Scott, who is the Vice President for Student Affairs at Tuskegee University. And Dr. Bobby Woodard, who is the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs at Auburn University. So as you can see, we have a variety of schools represented here. We have a couple of large publics. We have a community college. We have an HBCU from our state. I represent an online adult serving institution. So we've got a bunch of different angles that we're going to bring into this today. So say welcome and feel free to connect with all of us outside of this as well. I think you have our contact information posted in the information portion of your session. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enter into a time where we're going to throw some questions out and we're going to let our panelists address these. And we'll put some of these answers up, and then you can take some notes as we go along, folks. And then again, when we get to the Q&A portion at the end, you'll be able to address these further. So if you've got questions, make notes of that, and we'll keep going, okay? All right, folks, let's get started. Let's talk about 2020, okay? 2020 was, you name it, it was thrown at us, okay? As it happened, we've dealt with a pandemic and a quarantine that's affected everything. We've had protests, we've had unrest, we've had hurricanes. Down here where I live, we had 2 of them, you know, within a few weeks' time. Economic mess, we've had a crazy election season and things that came out of that, all type of things that really just brought stress and emotional upheaval into personal lives and into our campus life, okay? And that's been a big deal. So I think one of the things probably that we should address right here off the bat is, what was your greatest leadership challenge? Because all of these things that happened were external forces that came in on us. So how did you handle those? Kimberly, would you go first with that and kind of lead us off?
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining in today. The majority of our students come from marginalized communities, so that further compound the challenges that we had to manage as an institution. The students were already experiencing exposure to harmful conditions. 85% of them lost some sense of access to technology and or other means, which meant that we had to really figure out how to support them. And when I say technology, specifically, we're talking about Wi-Fi. A number of our students are still using cell phones and other means to connect. We had students who lost access to healthy foods, about 14% of them, and 59% of them lost access to support. And then you couple in all of these external factors, the election, you couple in the George Floyd incident and all of the things that took place this semester, and the lack of a connection that happened. And so as we prepared to return, what we know is that those students were really dying for some sense of connection. They wanted to be connected to the campus, no matter if it was students or faculty or alumni. And so our first and foremost challenge was, again, creating those opportunities for them to have their needs met, That meant that we were establishing our CARES program and addressing their needs for technology and for food insecurity and other things via the CARES Act. So getting those checks out was challenging for us because everything is paper-based. So I know other campuses are very much technology-based, but a lot of our experiences, I think, COVID-19 really shined a light on the fact that we needed to enhance our infrastructure for technology. And so all of us had to go through training and figure out how to reach out and connect to our students differently. And we had to figure out that we needed to connect more uniquely in their world. They're on Snapchat, Instagram, GroupMe, and all of these different things. And so while we do that in student life, our faculty were not ready for some of those things. So student life became the teacher in most cases for some of the faculty in terms of how to do some of the online things that make the difference for students. But I think the biggest success in turning around some of these connection pieces is bringing together the alumni who were really ready to come in and support our students and our faculty in conversation around the issues of the pandemic, of the actual political unrest, and of course the George Floyd elections and all of those different pieces. And it made for a very unique conversation. In addition to making our students feel connected, we developed mentoring relationships after that. And so I think it brought us together as a community and had us focus and prioritize the needs of our students more uniquely. You know, sometimes you can be at an institution and you think you're all on the same page. I think this pandemic really forced us to come together as a community, that including, you know, not just our faculty, staff, and alumni, but also corporations came in and to support our students like no other. And so the amount of support that came in financially and those people who were willing to jump in on a Zoom and talk about a specific topic and really just help us to, again, reconfigure how we were offering our programs and services to our students, which I think made a significant difference. In the end, 74% of our students said that they're still very much, you know, in the place that they want to be, that they believe this is where they're supposed to be and that they enjoy the experience. So what we're doing is working, and we continue to make sure that we're connecting and in the ways that students connect.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Myron, you get ready because they told me we were going to pick on you since you were, you know, joining us after we start. I'm going to give you a second to breathe on the question we're on, okay? As we do that. But Amanda, would you give us, bringing a community college perspective to this and how that might have differed and what your biggest challenge was during this time?
Well, we are 100% commuter campus. We don't have any kind of on-campus housing. So, and we were mostly, you know, largely on-campus courses. We have a large technical piece of our program too. And so technical classes are very difficult to do in an environment where you're not hands-on. And so for us, transitioning the students to the online environment, like you said, connecting them with resources for Wi-Fi and community resources. Where could they go to get these things that they needed if they couldn't get them on our campus? And being sure that we were being present for their needs that were additional to outside of even the coursework, making sure, you know, they knew how these are food pantries and, you know, places in their communities, because ours are from all over. So we really tried to work on ensuring we had a connection with them on a regular basis, whether it be their advisor, their faculty member, or someone like that.
Okay. That's excellent. Bobby, what was the biggest challenge in all of that? What was the biggest mountain to get over?
So I think both Amanda and Kimberly talked about technology and having people switch on the dime. For us, we were lucky because we were on spring break. And so it gave us an extra week to figure it out before everything had to switch in March. And we were on the phone. But I would say if we're talking about just the student affairs professionals, I think some of the toughest things were that for us is that it's okay to tell somebody, well, I really don't understand where you're coming from. And I'm talking from pandemic to George Floyd and some of the unrest. And now we're going into the elections. You know, the people here at Auburn have heard me say this many times. You'll never know my political affiliation because my job is to represent all 30,737 students.
That's right.
If they think I'm leaning one way, they might not come to me when they have a need. And so I can't. I do vote. I believe it's important to vote, but you'll never know my political affiliation. So I think that was some of the things that to talk to the staff about and the city affairs professionals, as long as make sure, myself that doesn't share anything in social media that somebody might take as one way or the other. And so you really have to look at that and what to share, what not to share. Now, on the good sides of that, Lee, and I'll make this short, is, we've always been flexible. City Affairs has always been able to pivot at a moment's notice, I think. I think that's why other administrators in our universities look to us, is because we can do that. I tell people every day, the meetings don't change hour by hour. Usually it's about every 15 minutes, you're thinking about a different option and our way to go. And so I think for us, it was more about just listening and knowing if we made a mistake, we'll just tweak and go the other way. So that's kind of a quick summary.
Okay. Myron, I know you're at our flagship institution for the state, and you were a little newer there with some of these things going on too. What was your biggest hurdle that you got over, and how did you deal with that?
Well, I apologize again, everyone, for coming in a little bit late. It's interestingly enough, I had a live television broadcast focused on what? COVID, of course. So I arrived on campus on April 1st. Which was right at the very start of this. And there are some folks who continue to tease me and say that I brought COVID to town. So I'm not going to own that. But I think the biggest challenge that I've had this year, of course, is this is my alma mater. I've graduated from here 3 times, but I've been gone 20 years. The culture's changed quite a bit. The campus has changed quite a bit. And certainly when I left the institution, I was not in this capacity. So trying to get a lay of the land and filling out what's transpired during this past, what transpires during a given semester, fall semester, spring semester, summer at the University of Alabama has been a challenge. Obviously, we have done very well. I can't say enough about our faculty and staff, how they have responded in terms of their leadership, and more than anything, our students just being responsive to the changes and the adjustments that we've made. But in all of it, it's certainly a very different time than what we experienced in the past. And so every day it's almost like Groundhog's Day, but at the same time, it's very different in terms of the things that we're seeing on a daily basis that are a challenge, new challenges, and rethinking things. We're at a point right now, as we brought students back to campus, we were going through retesting, and all of a sudden we started looking at those students who were not compliant, and we were developing new systems. So in many ways, it's been a challenge that we are out of our normal zone of operations. But at the same time, I think we're going to come out this on the other side with some skill sets and some ideas and techniques and services and programs and the way we conduct those in a very different way, which is going to be an asset for us. We've had to be very nimble during this period of time, and I believe that student affairs professionals, that's something we've always done. We've been very creative and innovative, but certainly for universities as a whole, this has been a very challenging time, as nothing is usual. But at the same time, we've also had to be very innovative and creative to best serve our students.
That's great. From our end, we thought as an online institution, we might not feel as much of this. But what we found out at one of our colleges, of our 3 colleges, is College of Safety and Emergency studies that we do. And so a lot of our faculty were frontline workers that were out in the midst of this, and a lot of those were early exposures. So we actually ran through a thing where we had faculty not available to our students, and a lot of our students work in those fields and were being called away from class. And so we were dealing with a lot of burned out, stressed out students who, quite reality was, they didn't have time to even do their work with what they were doing. So that was a very interesting piece for us. So let's talk a little bit, something that came out of that, talking about the technology issue. Okay, so that's a big part of this. And a lot of our schools did not have technology in place to deal with this. Now, some of us have a lot of background in online learning. Okay, I've been teaching online for 15 years. Some of you have too, and it just kind of seemed second nature to flip some of that stuff. But a lot of our faculty members weren't used to that, and especially student affairs. We haven't really done, most schools, much of our stuff in the virtual world. Okay, just to be honest, if you're an online student, you get a few clubs and things here and there. How did you guys leverage technology to create a new campus environment during the time that you were remote? And some of you remote, it looked like students confined to their dorm rooms or hotel rooms or whatever that was, and some of you was clearing campus. I'd like to hear a little bit about how you went about that and put that into play. Bobby, I know a little bit about what went on at Auburn during that time, just as an alum and watching it. Why don't you start us off with some of that?
Sure. The first thing we thought about was how are we going to get the technology in terms of Wi-Fi, much like Kimberly spoke before. We didn't want people using their cell phones and using their data. Then they're going to become outrageous cell phone bills and so forth, and put them in a behind the eight ball versus actually helping them improve. And so we worked out a deal with AT&T and Verizon, and we are a Verizon school here based on contract, but of course we got some relief. And so we got some MiFis that we could give out to our students. And we understood that there's some we would never get back. And we worked out, and I believe the state also helped work out with AT&T and Verizon to actually give it free to some of our students in terms of the technology and connection. So we had that. We had laptops. We had a couple of laptops we could do. And as we went into more online teaching, as began late spring, early summer, we had to make sure our faculty had dock cameras and all that stuff so they can teach at home, and web cameras so they could teach. And so we had to plus up really quickly. And of course, as most of us have dealt with, it was the supply chain. How are you going to find the supply chain and get it here in time? And so we had to find a way to actually reach out and meet our students where they were. And one of the key things is, being one of the land grant institutions in the state, we have an office in all of our counties in the state. And so we work with the local public libraries and to see that our students could come there and reserve some computers for them and computer time for them so they can go there and actually use the computers. And some other places, there were some Wi-Fi cafes, not as much anymore. So that's kind of what we did from there. Now, the working part of it was, we hate to say that people are not working. We're not saying that, say, return to campus versus return to work, because a lot of people are more productive at home working or wherever they're going to travel and work. And then it really gets you to think about, do we really need all the brick and mortar buildings and so forth we have on campus, which is a large cost. And it's actually the output of that. So for us, how it's going to look down the road is, does all of our student affairs professionals need to be back in the office on a daily basis, or is there a way that they can work from home and then we'll come in? The last thing I'll say is programming. It really challenged our programmers to go out and actually learn how to do it online. They were usually capable, because they're more apt than probably any of us on this phone call of learning online stuff, except maybe Lee. And so for them, they did a really good job of making sure we still got that personal touch to all of our students. Our interviews or student clubs and organizations were done over Zoom, so you still got to see somebody. You got counseling done over there. You got some of our Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all those groups were meeting together. So you still had a connection, and we tried to take away the isolation. And that's a good thing. And I think as we move forward, we're going to do more of this hybrid stuff versus everything in person. And that really helped our distance ed students, our graduate students, and stuff like that.
That's a great point on some of that. The community building was such an important part of that. And I know that all of you will speak to that a bit. And leveraging those younger staff members that know what it is the students are using. But before the rest of you logged in, the group and I were having that conversation that sometimes we're not using the same platforms and things, and our dependence on our younger staff members to give us these ideas to look at and to see what that comes to, how it comes to fruition, how we put the pieces together to actually connect with our students. And that's beautiful. Amanda, what did you guys do with this? How did you create community through technology?
I think Zoom became our best friend, because we could do our advising sessions via Zoom. Our student groups and clubs could meet via Zoom. I mean, and that way they had someone they could see and talk to. And I'll be honest with you, the advising sessions have turned out wonderful via Zoom, because the student can share their screen and I can't log in. Where is this link? I can't find that. I really think that this is something we're going to continue to move forward with, because the students, we can work interactively in that environment, in that session, and solve the problems, quickly, in and out from that session, and they still have some connectivity to someone, and they don't have to drive in for a meeting to get some answers to a few things. So for us, it's really been trying to build that connection via Zoom, via text messaging, emails, having someone able to connect them and then get them to the resource that they need as quickly as possible.
Okay. Kimberly, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really inspired a lot of creativity among student organizations. Media is something that our students are extremely interested in, and so when we talk about student groups and programming, a lot of what they did was really to focus on how can they be the most creative in the delivery of programs and services. And so we also introduced esports. That was new for us this year. So we found that we need more of the game councils at this point. So that's another financial point that we're looking to invest in. And then 31% of our students live on campus, but we have 69% that are obviously out in either remote, but the students that were in the area, just creating spaces for them to be able to engage on campus. So that meant that we created additional computer spaces, additional gaming spaces. We also put up tents so that if we're doing programming, we're encouraging that physical distancing that occurs outside. So we had to change our programming spaces. Obviously, we retrofitted all of our campus facilities for physical distancing, but we wanted to add that extra layer of programming space outside for our students. So there were more picnic tables, more Wi-Fi connection spaces, things that would make a difference for our students. So a lot of it was really just listening to them and finding out what specifically they needed to be successful in that space.
Excellent. Excellent. Myron, I know you guys have a large technology base because your Bama by distance and those things have been going on for quite a while. What'd you do new? What'd you bring to the table for the community and the connection side in particular?
I've listened to my colleagues, and I'm hearing many of the same things that we did. Obviously, again, we're seeing that about 60% of our students are from out of state at this point. But again, being a small town boy from Alabama in the Black Belt, I know that when I go down to visit my mom now, there are still challenges in terms of access to, reliable web service. And, for many of our students, as they returned home, we work with them quite a bit with MiFis, et cetera, to ensure that we had that level of, they had access to their classes and certainly the services that we have in place. We have seen quite one of our biggest concerns was with during this period with the amount of mental health distress that our students were experiencing and having access to our counseling team. We were not sure how our students were going to respond, whether they were going to utilize Zoom or not to access us. And we continue to utilize Zoom as well as other technologies just to make sure that we are providing this, mental health support and certainly ensuring that students their overall well-being is in a good place. We became communications experts. Obviously, for many campuses, for all of us, we started sending tons of email to our students just to try to relay what was going on inside the classroom and make sure that they were aware of all the resources. And after a while, like everyone else, it becomes rather tedious, and they begin to ignore it. So we started thinking about ways in which we could communicate with them in a different way through text messaging as well as through social media, again, leveraging our young staff members to help us older folks get a little bit more adjusted to how to send an effective tweet or Snapchat or whatever it may be, just to be able to access the populations, our students, and ensure that they had the information that they need to be successful.
Excellent, excellent. I think you guys have all done some great stuff with that. I think one of the biggest challenges we dealt with was the mental health side, how you offer that counseling. That's been hard. We've heard some good ideas on things in some of the sessions and ideas today, how those have been kind of wrapped together. And I look forward to going back through some of those resources. So take a look at those folks. Let's talk just a little bit about the staff side, okay? Because a couple of things that have happened in this, we forced some people to work at home. Some people had to come to campus even if they were scared to or didn't feel right about it. We've had to wear masks. I catch myself trying to smile at people and realizing they can't see me smile, even in the grocery store. That kind of thing that's missing a little bit with that. But it's blurred the lines a little bit for a lot of people. There was concern when we went remote a year ago, and our school has not gone back to campus, folks. We're still remote. Would we get the work done? Oh, we're getting the work done. Productivity is up above norm, but at the same time, our people are exhausted.
Yes.
Because when that phone line that's been forwarded to a computer or whatever it is goes off, it creates something different. So what did you do? Maybe some creative ideas, folks, for supporting your staff during this time, especially when we also were dealing with some furloughs and some layoffs that create additional stress and fear for folks. Amanda, you want to take this one first?
Well, I will say in the beginning, when we all went home and trying to get a million things done at one time, I caught myself sending emails after hours, late in the evening, and to my staff members, not thinking or not anticipating they would respond back to me at that time. I didn't mean for them to have to be, but they felt the need to respond back to me. And so I made it a point in my life to not send anything at those hours and wait until the next morning, put it in draft, so that I did not make them feel as though I was expecting them to work at 9 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning. And then, continually we built the Teams groups in Teams. So we have regular meetings. We have a chat that we run throughout the day to kind of share what's going on with each other, to, maybe tell a funny joke. We're doing something called Thoughtful Thursdays, where we share something from the week that, was exciting to us or made us, have a caring student situation or something, and sharing that with our group to kind of pull the staff in to feel connected at this point in time, but also to make sure that we're not overworking them while they're at home and doing it in those after hours.
I think along with that, and I'm going to transition this question just a little bit, because I think a lot of us have done the same thing with that, as I saw heads nodding and things. What is the role of the senior leadership to set an example in this of work-life balance and where that comes in? And how were you able to do that? Because honestly, at our level, a lot of times that doesn't really exist very well anyway for us, because phones go off at all kinds of times. What did you do to keep your own sanity and do it in a way to set an example to your staff members? Kimberly, you got some thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I failed miserably. so, I had to retool. And obviously, my goal was to support. We use Microsoft Teams quite a bit. We also had what we call Throwback Thursdays. Remember what we used to do, when we weren't in a pandemic. We can still do walking as a group and exercise. So we encourage staff to take those moments to take a break and go out and walk. And exercise to get their own mental sanity in check, and really just one of the other things that we've done around specific times, usually around holidays, is to have the secret whoever, just to have an opportunity to pass a note to encourage someone. And then when we knew that some staff members were having difficult times, all of us would reach out to be sure to say that, hey, we miss you. We want to make sure you're okay. Do you need anything? So just those checkpoints seem to make a significant difference. But again, giving them time and having them recognize that even if you see me, because I just can't stop. I mean, I work between 11 and 1 because that's my high point. My point is to say to them, you don't have to respond. Even though you see something that's an email from me, you can wait until tomorrow morning, but that's when I need to get things done. And so recognizing that we're all different, we work differently, and we need to support each other's different work styles, but you do need to try and find a cutoff time, find a way to strike the balance between home and work. And, if that means that you're stopping at 7 p.m., unless you're one of the people carrying the duty phones, let's just make sure that you're taking that time to be with family and friends.
I think that's great. And just thinking about with our time and stuff, folks, any other unique ideas that you would throw in that as to how you put that in your life or modeled it for your teams? All right. I know one of the things I do is my phone doesn't ring after like 9 o'clock at night. The ringer, unless you're my mom, you can't reach me. And we kind of told that to the teams. There's got to be a place, because you're better when you're rested. You're more creative when you're rested. You have more patience and insight and empathy with the students when you've had some rest and some time to recharge and do that. So we try to do that, and I try to model it. It doesn't always go that way, like you said. So let's think about a couple things. Let's change gears just a little bit. Right now is an interesting time for careers because higher ed's in a little bit of upheaval. We've got budget stuff going on, changing to some things. If we're talking about, some of our entry level and even our mid-level staff members, and they're looking for that next place to move in their career, there's a fear of being stuck right now. They're feeling like nothing's moving forward, positions aren't opening. What kind of encouragement can we give them right now, or what kind of planning advice could you give them in going forward with their careers? Myron, you want to take this one first?
You would give him that one. Number one, for the guy who just moved, don't move during a pandemic. Don't start a new job during a pandemic. Note to self. I think when I was a faculty member, full-time faculty member, one of the things that I used to do with our master's students in the higher ed program was I would tell them, go out and look at the Chronicle of Higher Education and look at the job that you expect to apply for upon your graduation. What's that first job? Go out and sit down and start thinking about, find multiple, numbers of those jobs, and sit down and look at what, where you are and what skill sets you have. Reconnect with, connect with your mentors, faculty members. Talk to them about where you are and what you can do right during this period of time to, think about taking that next step. Obviously, again, right, for some of you you're past grad school, but essentially it's essentially the same thing. Even for me, I don't, I still ask, what am I going to do when I grow up? So it's one of those things of what's next and thinking about those positions that may come my way and mapping that out. I can't emphasize enough, again, staying in contact with your mentors. I've had quite a few individuals who reached out to me. I've got my mentors who are individuals who have retired here, as well as some folks back in Oklahoma. I continue to stay in contact with them, and I've noticed that people have slowed down a little bit, and they've started to reach out to friends and family from the past during this period of time. And it's time for you to certainly do that, because they can offer some encouragement and support during this period of time to start thinking about taking that next step. And it's certainly going to get to that point of opening up again, but in the meantime, those are some things that I would certainly recommend.
Okay. Anybody else with some advice on that? I'm gonna let you chime in, and we're gonna start some Q&A from the floor.
Just one quick thing to get on what Myron was saying. Not only look at the job description, but if you can search the resume of the people that are the finalists and see what you're missing, and then find out who got it and actually study that resume, that way okay, this is kind of what tipped them over. Now, we understand the interview skills and personality and fit can be in there, but on paper, what can you miss? I want to emphasize what Myron said on that, because I think that's very, very underrated, that you go and look at those job descriptions and find out what you want and get involved in that. And then the connection of professional organizations, much like this one, if people know your name, they're like, wait a minute, I got a job. All of us reach out to each other and say, look, I got this position. You know anybody good for this position or that will fit here? I mean,
stop calling me out.
I didn't say anything. Myron just sent me a text about it.
I just did that this week.
Right. But that's how you find great people. And so I just wanted to emphasize what Myron said, because I think he's right on point for that.
And I will throw out there to some of you, don't let the emotional turmoil of what we've been through cause you to think you need to jump jobs in the middle of that, or that you need to panic at that. I think you need to keep a level head and continue whatever your plan and your course for your career is, rather than just reacting to everything, because it'll do that to us. It'll get us very unnerved with our situation. You know what? The grass always looks greener on the other side of the fence, but sometimes it's over the septic tank. Okay. You have to think about that a little bit. So, just take a pause. All right. I want to grab a question. We've had one that's come in through the chat. I want to make sure that we address. This is coming from Elizabeth, and she's asking how we're navigating potential budget cuts during this time. And those look a little different in the different markets that we're representing in here right now. Amanda, we know that community colleges have taken a big hit to enrollment nationwide during this. How are you dealing with that change, and what's that doing to your budgets?
Well, we have had a big hit in our enrollment. So we are obviously reviewing everything, taking stock of what has happened and what we think, projecting where we're going to be in the future. But we feel good about where we are right now and where we're going to try to move forward. We're going to look at some new pathways for enrollment and some, retention strategies to obviously keep the students that we have. And so we're going to focus internally on how we can keep what we have, recruit new students, and hopefully have bigger semesters going forward.
Okay. Excellent. All right, let's see, Kimberly, private school here.
Oh, yeah. So, we actually thought we were going to have a flat enrollment or to actually lose students. But what we do know is that, because of some of the political unrest during the summer, that, students are looking specifically at how they can find places that fit with their culture and experiences. And so we've actually been able to remain flat. And in some cases, I think when we started in the spring, we had a little bit of an increase. And then even coming into the spring semester, and I meant fall, but coming into the spring semester, we're actually we didn't lose a whole lot of students, which we traditionally do in between semesters. So our conversations are a little bit different in terms of looking at how do we take the revenue that has increased, or even from the HBCU debt forgiveness, how do we take what potentially may come in and look at how we deal with deferred maintenance, or look at how we re-engineer some of the positions that currently exist, or create new positions, or deal with some of the things that we've really been wanting to tackle. So our situation is just a little bit different. We're still under-resourced, but we do have some opportunities to do some things differently.
And we look forward to see what those are going to be and how they're going to help the students and the situations within that. Now, as we get ready for Myron and Bobby on these, all of the media is telling us that the brand recognition is the big deal. Okay, and that the big schools, because they're still getting all their students, aren't being as effective. Now, I have a suspicion that that's not entirely true. There's a lot of effect from these budget cuts going on in there. Bobby, you want to speak to this from Auburn?
Sure, and I'll try to knock it down. So we are one of the land grants, and so which means we have to serve the people of the state of Alabama. And I know Myron spoke before that I think 60% of his class or our institution is out of state, and we can't go that high. For the most part, the in-state tuition is discounted because you get supplement from the state, where out of state is 3 times the in-state, because that's the actual cost to educate a student here at any of our institutions. So what we did is we know that our enrollment has been flat. And when I say flat, it has been flat. We can't offer more students because the Board of Trustees has put a limit on how big our undergraduate school can get. Graduate school, we can grow, but undergraduate population, we're trying to stop it at 25,000, or they're just short of there. And so we know that money coming in is going to, we know what that balance is as we move forward. So we knew the pandemic was coming, and when we hit it, as we start going into our fiscal year, which starts October 1, and our current fiscal year, we in Student Affairs went ahead and proactively held money back. So we asked every functional unit to hold back 5%. Central didn't ask us to do that. Well, as we're now preparing for next year's budget, fiscal year 22, they're saying you got to have 6% held back. So what I can do is we're going to hold 6% back of your budget, but then we've got some other monies that we possibly can move around if there's something we really want to do, or there's deferred maintenance we really have to do, that we can do that. So it's kind of, you've got to plan out a little bit as that goes forward, while at the same time, we do know that we still got to recruit our students, got to have our students retain. And it costs money to recruit students, but it costs money to retain a student also. So we need to make sure we don't forget about retaining students as much as recruiting students at the same time.
Absolutely. And retention's a team effort. That's a full campus work done.
Yes.
Within that. And well, Myron, from your perspective, at our largest institution, and a lot of out-of-state students as well in that, where are you guys sitting? How are you navigating these changes?
For the fall and spring semesters, we were fairly flat, but it's a very unusual flatness. Again, with 60% of our students from out of state, again, we have had a very high reliance on those higher paying students. This particular semester, again, fall as well as spring, what we saw was that we were about even in credit hour production, but again, we had a higher number of in-state students, which is great. But again, those students are not paying as much as our out-of-state students. We also saw a very significant increase in the number of graduate students. And our continuing education program, we have about 6,500, close to 7,000 students this year who are in that program. Our brand, again, is very strong, and that helps us to be able to recruit from out of state and certainly expand our graduate programs. For many institutions, we are now going with the policy of not requiring an admissions test. That has caused our numbers to just go through the roof. And so if some of you are considering grad school right now, now's the time to get in if you're not interested in taking the GRE. But those things, and now's the time. So I think that so now at this point, we were flat in terms of enrollment, but we were down by about 3% in terms of tuition revenue for the fall as well as the spring. We were thinking that we were going to be closer to 5%. Of course, at one point in time, we were planning scenarios as bad as 20-25% back in April. So basically that being at that level, we're in a really good place. But internally, what I'm saying to my team is, okay, very much like Bobby said, we're not holding money back right now, but we're having some conversations about stop doing lists. What are the things that we can stop doing at this point? If push comes to shove, let's prioritize. Let's prioritize our work. And certainly in this environment where we've had to be very innovative, we can have people work from home. We can leverage technology. Are there some places where we can find cost savings through that innovation, the utilization of technology to ensure that we are able to have those savings in place if there is a budget cut? We're looking at this particular fall. Our applications are up out of state, and we're down by about 100 students in state. I'm hoping that if you ever have a chance, do a search on the Flutie effect. After winning a national championship, you typically have a bounce. So, I'm hoping that will benefit us quite a bit also, just because of that brand awareness and visibility across the country.
All right, Bobby, we need to make that happen back at Auburn again. Those of us Auburn grads, we need that.
I agree.
It's my job to make sure that doesn't happen.
There you go. From our end as an online school, we experienced a little bit of a reduction in students, particularly some of the undergrad. And a lot of that is because they're adult students. And as their world changed, it was tougher for them to go to school. But we budget a little differently at this institution on more of a different business model in our approach. And I think that's been very useful to us. Now, I will say it's been very different for me. Coming from traditional backgrounds, it's been a different way to approach it. But I tell you, we didn't lay off any student affairs staff. We've actually been hiring. I actually have a couple of open positions right now that I'm hiring for. I may get flooded after saying that on here. But that has been a unique thing. So ours has been down just a little bit in there as well with some of the rest of you. And that always does kind of scare people as we do things and we try things new, and it makes us be very specific on what we're going to spend for. Yeah. All right, now folks, if you're in here, participants, we are open for questions in the chat area. If you'll put those in, we'll get them. We do have another one that has come in. So the question from Jamie says, the nature of your work requires you to balance issues across campus that affect your students, as well as sift through information coming at you from many entities. How do you triage these issues and determine which information is most important?
That's a good one.
That's a big one, but that's a good one. I'll let y'all chew on it just a second there. So a lot of this is information management and setting priorities out of that is how that reads to me. So let's go with that. Kimberly, you want to start that one?
No, you weren't supposed to start with me first.
I got you, didn't
Yes.
Well, I do know that, when we talk about when we started our isolation practices on campus, we have 8 schools. And so everybody had their own plan. And we sat in the same room and made plans and, really went about a marketing program and making sure that everybody was on the same page. But yet we still had this issue of, individuals still trying to, in essence, formulate and do the very best for their students possible, but it wasn't consistent with the practices that we had established. And so, information came from various areas. And so we really had to begin to talk with our college deans and really ask that we all, have kind of that one band, one sound, that this is the thing that we talked about. Here's the policy, here's the procedures. We all agree that it needs to work in this way. And if there are questions, here's your one person that you connect with for information, as opposed to, them going to various spaces on campus. And so, one person delivers the message out, one person is responsible for responding to those serious inquiries as related to a particular topic. So it's really about managing the information and who's responsible for delivering it and who's responsible for answering those tough questions. So yeah, has been an interesting time, but I think we've tackled it.
Excellent. Amanda, what do you think in your world?
I think for us, one thing I try to tell everyone is to always listen more than you talk. So when you go to those different information sources or the information is coming in and say it's something you need to investigate, or, someone's saying something, you need to go to those people directly. You need to make sure you ask questions and then you truly listen to what is being provided back to you. And then take that back and, review it if you have to form a committee to look at some things. But listening and going to the person and finding out exactly what was said or what was done and ensuring that you were doing a thoughtful process in any kind of thing, like a situation of that nature. And then I will say, like you said, the managing of just all of it coming in from different directions to one person. If you have a specific thing going on, or, one person is going to be designated to be the response person for these kind of questions, or so you don't have that mixed message coming out from the different offices across the campus, which can happen, especially in these kind of situations. So it's important to get that team together, make sure everyone is on the same page.
With a larger staff, that's going to be a larger problem as well. Bobby, thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I guess I took the question a different way of how much we are reading at nighttime or during the day and picking
We'll address it that way. Go for it.
So I'm going to tweak it a little bit. There are a couple of sources that I go to religiously, I guess, and that I know. I am very much a bullet points person. I even tried to do my dissertation bullet points. I was told no, but that's okay. I tried. So you have to find out what your learning style is. So it goes back to learning style and what you have, and then what you want to listen to. I don't personally listen to the news. I don't watch the news as much. I go and read because I know there I can choose and compare, contrast things a little bit better. And so it depends on where you go and what you feel is the best information. And knowing in me, maybe the cynic in me is like, I don't know about 85% of it. 85% of it's probably true. So how can I get and see what this one says and this one says and bring it forward? The other thing is that you listen to the campus experts, whoever they are in different areas. For us in student affairs, who are the programming experts? That's not me. I'm not the programming expert. Who is that expert? So we can go and find out what's the best information to go. How's our dining worked out? For us, our strategic planning and assessment tells us what was working and what is not working. And that's why that is still important. So for me, it kind of goes to where we are. And then someone said earlier is trusted people that you can call and ask questions. Meyer and I are both in the same athletic conference. So we have a text group that we can, which most everybody else in this has the same group to go through. So we kind of bounce stuff off each other a lot. And that is a trusted group, because then a parent or student can't say, well, Mississippi State's doing this or Georgia's doing this, because we already know because we've checked with them and see. And then for Tuskegee being down the road from us or us up the road from them, Kimberly and I've talked a couple times over the summer, so we make sure our students are interacting and how we can help each other out. And so I think it's building colleagues like that is the best way.
Myron, thoughts to add to that?
The only thing I would add is there was a lot of information flowing our way as we went into this COVID environment. And the one thing that it almost goes without saying, but it's something that we have to always remember is that in our seats, this panel, we are the senior student affairs administrators on the campus. We're senior student affairs officer on the campus. And with that, we bring the student lens to the table. And when I arrived on campus, the students weren't here. And, I didn't have a connection. I had to build connections and relationships with students because I wanted to make sure that as we were coming up with these new policies, coming up with these new ideas, I wanted to hear from students, their perspective. So that everything that, I was bringing to the table, yes, I was hearing all the other information, but I was also making sure that I included the student lens, because that's at the end of the day what's going to be important. And I think my peers kind of touched on that in many ways in terms of thinking about that. But that's the thing I've been constantly saying and asking is, have we talked to students about this? How are students going to perceive this? And consequently, that's, no matter how much information I get, at the end of the day, I filter it through that lens for sure.
Okay. And I think another little different take on this question on the triaging side of it has to do with how we react. Because we get a lot of stuff, and let's just say it, folks in student affairs, we're very passionate. And so when something causes a spark, it can turn into a wildfire real quick. And, for me, a lot of it is trying not to react to information, and then trying to work with our staff and say, okay, give me what you know, give me what you heard. Now take a breath and I'll get back with you as soon as we've got something. I think that's a big part of it. And some of that, I think, is things that we learned over the years in leadership, is that ability to kind of remain calm with something and wait until we have the facts. I'm kind of like Bobby. I don't watch the news anymore because I'd rather read it than have somebody yell it at me. But it helps me be more relaxed as we do it. But then make sure we're giving honesty to the campus when we speak, and that helps as well, so that they know when we do come out, what we're bringing is the truth, and there's not a question to that. All right, well, our time is ending, and so first thing I want to do is thank you each for joining us on this panel. Your insights have been incredible, and we're indebted to you for that. So thank you so much for coming and doing that. And we're also going to wrap up. Thanks for those who attended this session. We got you through your afternoon need for a nap, hopefully, because we were all laughing about that early on. Thank you for the questions that you brought to this. So I'm going to hand this off to Abby at this point, and we're going to talk about a few other items going forward. Abby?
Hi, everyone. I'm Abby Langham, your immediate past president for Naspa, Alabama. Dr. Woodard, it's always nice to hear our senior vice president say that assessment and strategic planning are important in decision making. So thank you for that. Thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you to Dr. Barnett for doing a wonderful job as a moderator. This has been an exceptional day. Thanks to you all for your attention as we navigated our first ever virtual conference with Naspa, Alabama. This is my last official opportunity to speak with you as a member of the board, since I'll be rolling off as the immediate past state director for Naspa, Alabama. I feel such pride to be a part of this outstanding organization. It has been an absolute delight to watch the growth we've experienced over the years. From the time that I started on Naspa, Alabama on the board back in 2016, I have watched the statewide group achieve so many goals. We have created a repository during COVID with resources for folks around the state. We've had members reporting feeling more connected to Naspa, Alabama now than they had in the past. We completely rebranded. We created regular newsletters. We started streamlining our elections processes, created a conference planning committee for more members within our state to get involved with Naspa, Alabama, created undergraduate internship opportunities, conducted a members' needs assessment on professional development that needs to be done in our state. We intentionally diversified our makeup, as you can see from our panelist presentation that we just had, as far as the institutions who represent and serve in Naspa, Alabama capacities. We grew our membership. We hosted online brown bags, created scholarships, created sponsorship levels and opportunities. We created the Best of Alabama, Naspa, Alabama Award. So hopefully someone from this presentation, from this conference, will receive that award soon. And then also offering graduate and student new professionals grants to attend the Region 3 Summer Symposium. I know that I leave this group in good hands. I look forward to watching as Naspa, Alabama continues to thrive. Thanks again to the board for their hard work and to all of you for your active participation throughout the day today. I'll now turn it over to our current state director, Chris Jones, as we approach our last segment of the day, the networking hour. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Abby. And you all just don't know, Abby has been really one of the most important people in terms of transforming Naspa, Alabama, and leading us the past few years. So I'm eternally grateful for your support and your commitment to Naspa, Alabama over the years. So I hope that you all enjoyed the conference today. It has been my distinct honor and pleasure to serve Alabama as the state director. This conference could not have come together without the amazing work of the Naspa Alabama Board of Directors and our conference planning committee. If you are part of our team, please say hello in the chat so that we can recognize you. And I want to give a special shout out to Joanne Hill, who's our conference chair. Once we started to plan this conference, we thought we were going to be able to do this in person at the beginning of the year last year. Well, obviously that didn't happen. And so Joanne did a great job of pivoting and getting us prepared to do this virtually. And we have had an amazing conference today. So special shout out to Joanne and Danny, who works with Naspa in helping us with our technology to make sure that you all had a great experience today. So I want to give those folks a special shout out. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Bama by Distance, Martin Luther Chappelle, and the Award Center Birmingham for helping fund scholarships and awards for our conference attendees and state members. Most of all, we could not have done this without our highly qualified presenters. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I was able to sit in on many of your sessions and they were top notch. So thank you all for working so hard on those and creating the experience for membership within the state. So now I would like to recognize our Best of Naspa Alabama Presentation Award. This award recognizes the most outstanding presentation proposal submitted and presented at the annual drive-in conference as voted on by you, the conference attendees. Presentations are scored in the areas of relevancy, of topic, audience engagement, dynamic delivery, and participant takeaways. This year's recipient of the Best of Naspa Alabama Presentation Award is Blemish on the Whiteboard, supporting staff of color in predominantly white spaces. Congratulations to Lori White from Auburn University. I actually had a chance to sit in on that presentation and it was phenomenal. So congratulations to you, Lori. So as we wrap up, please join us in congratulating all of our award winners today.